What actually happens when God's patience finally runs out? Well, today in this explainer, we're going to see exactly how a blue-collar fig farmer from the dusty hills of Judah predicted a massive, devastating 8.0 magnitude earthquake and brought down the hammer of divine justice on an entirely corrupt nation. Let's dive right in. So picture this. The year is roughly 760 BC, and the stakes? They literally couldn't be higher. We're talking extreme wealth, massive corruption, and impending doom. If you've ever wanted to understand what happens when a whole society faces the raw, unfiltered judgment of the Almighty, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's look at the evidence. Now, this isn't some myth. It is an archaeologically proven fact. In 758 BC, the Dead Sea fault line violently ruptured. We're talking an estimated 8.0 magnitude earthquake. It shattered houses at Hazor, it moved multi-ton stones at Gezer. It was a disaster so legendary that other prophets were still talking about it hundreds of years later. And you want to know the most chilling part? The prophet Amos predicted it perfectly, exactly 2 years before the ground ever shook. Crazy, right? So who was this guy? The contrast between the religious establishment and God's chosen messenger here is just stark. Amos was the ultimate outsider. He wasn't some professional paid prophet from an elite religious guild, and actually, he furiously defended that fact. Instead, he was a rugged sheep breeder, a dresser of sycamore fig trees, basically a wealthy, hard-working agricultural businessman from the southern town of Tekoa. God didn't need a polished religious politician, you know? He needed a fearless truth-teller. And God sends him on quite the journey. He calls Amos from his home in Tekoa, down in the southern kingdom of Judah, straight up into the belly of the beast, the wealthy, deeply corrupt northern kingdom of Israel. This is right during the prosperous reign of King Jeroboam II. It was a time of massive economic growth and serious territorial expansion. I mean, Israel was absolutely booming. But, scratch beneath the surface of all that cash and military power, the nation's soul was completely rotting away. Which brings us to the core of God's indictment. They sell the righteous for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals. Man, Amos did not hold back. He marched right into Bethel, the absolute center of their state-sponsored fake religion, and he completely exposed the elites. Sure, they were highly religious, they were offering sacrifices, singing songs, keeping all the festivals, but Monday through Saturday, they were ruthlessly exploiting the poor, manipulating the courts, and literally selling out vulnerable people for the price of cheap shoes. God saw right through the religious hypocrisy. And he confronts this extreme luxury using some of the most shocking language in the entire Bible. He literally calls them the cows of Bashan. Yep, you heard that right. It was this fearless, super vivid rebuke targeted at the wealthy, complacent elites of the capital city of Samaria. These folks were busy lounging on imported ivory beds, demanding more wine, all while actively crushing the needy to fund their lavish lifestyles. He's basically telling them, look, your luxury is bought with the blood of the innocent, and God is about to settle the tab. All of this leads us to what many consider the central creed of the entire book, Amos 5:24. But let justice roll on like a river, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. God is saying, I hate your fake festivals. I can't stand the noise of your worship songs. What I actually demand is unyielding, everyday biblical justice. He wants a society where right human relationships flow naturally and powerfully, just like a massive, unstoppable river. It's just a stunning mandate for true righteousness. But, of course, Israel refused to listen. So God shifts gears from verbal warnings to visual terrors. We're going to rapid fire through these 5 terrifying visions of impending doom that God showed Amos. First up, a devastating swarm of locusts eating absolutely every green thing. Second, a supernatural consuming fire drying up the deep waters. Third, God holding a plumb line, proving Israel is completely crooked and beyond repair. Fourth, a basket of summer fruit. And finally, a vision of God himself standing by the altar, commanding it to be smashed to pieces so literally no one can escape. The climax of divine judgment is here. Now, there is some brilliant Hebrew wordplay hidden in that fourth vision. God shows Amos a basket of summer fruit. Well, in Hebrew, summer fruit is kayitz, and that sounds almost exactly like the Hebrew word ketz, which means the end. God was using this visual pun to declare a terrifying reality. Just as this fruit is ripe and about to rot, Israel is ripe for judgment. The time for warnings is officially over. The ketz, the end, has finally come. The tension finally snaps in Amos 4:12 with this massive alarm siren,
Prepare to meet your God, O Israel. This is the exact moment Amos clashes head-on with Amaziah, the corrupt chief priest of Bethel. Amaziah told Amos to pack his bags, go back to Judah, basically trying to silence the word of the Lord. But Amos, he didn't flinch. He told the priest exactly how his own family was going to be destroyed in the coming invasion. It goes to show you just cannot silence God's truth, no matter how much political or religious power you have. And history absolutely proves the terrifying accuracy of this warning. Just trace the timeline with me. In roughly 760 BC, Amos drops these heavy prophecies. Exactly 2 years later, in 758 BC, that legendary magnitude 8.0 earthquake rips through the land just exactly as he warned. But the people still didn't repent, so the final hammer fell in 722 BC when the brutal Assyrian Empire swept in, destroyed the northern kingdom, and dragged the Israelites into total exile. God's patience ran out, and his justice was executed precisely as promised.
But wait, that is not where the book ends. After 8.5 chapters of just unrelenting judgment, we dramatically pivot to the hope element of our story. Despite the total devastation, God makes an incredible promise. Look at Amos 9:11. In that day, I will raise up the fallen booth of David and wall up its breaches. God promises an eschatological restoration. He's going to rebuild the fractured line of King David. And, as we know from the New Testament, specifically the book of Acts, this was ultimately fulfilled through Jesus Christ and the bringing of the Gentiles right into God's eternal family.
And the imagery of this restoration, it's absolutely breathtaking. Amos 9:13 says, "The days are coming when the plowman will overtake the reaper." Basically, we're talking about a massive agricultural traffic jam. The harvest is going to be so incredibly abundant that before they can even finish gathering it, the planters are literally stepping on their heels. The mountains will drip with sweet wine. This is a promise of a new Eden, a future era of unprecedented spiritual and physical abundance where God plants his redeemed people securely forever, never to be uprooted again. So as we look at this history staring right back at us from the 8th century BC, it really begs a crucial question for us today. Are we practicing true biblical justice? Or are we just going through the religious motions? Amos teaches us that you cannot separate covenantal privilege from the strict demands of obedience. God doesn't just want our songs on Sunday, right? He demands our righteousness on Monday. He demands that we care for the vulnerable and uphold true justice in our communities. If you want to dive even deeper into these biblical truths, head over to sermonacademy.com right now to equip yourself further. And hey, consider supporting our mission at sermonacademy.com/donate. But before you go, I want you to think about this. We've seen exactly what happens when God's patience runs out on an unjust nation. So when he looks at your life, your community, and your worship, what does he see? I'll leave you with that. Keep studying the word, and I'll see you in the next explainer.